Hey everyone, I'm Barbara Beck and I want to thank you for tuning in to Welcome Home. If you're a parent or anyone who is in a position to influence a child, then today's program is just for you. We're going to be talking about ways we can protect our children on social media. That's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, all those places where our children go to socialize and be influenced by who knows what or whom. It's a scary world today with really no precedent for teaching what's responsible behavior on the internet. So we're sort of learning as we go along. So what do we do to protect our homes and families? What guidelines and safeguards are out there that we can utilize to keep our kids safe? If you're like me, you might not even know that some of these things exist for us. Well, fortunately, we have an expert on social media here with us today as a guest, and she's going to be giving us all sorts of tools and advice for monitoring social media activity. And as a bonus, she's sitting on our current panel as well. So let's get right to the program today as we talk about keeping our families safe. Welcome, ladies.
Hello.
Hi. Glad to have everybody here today. Tanika Geist, love having you from Orlando Union Rescue Mission again.
Always a pleasure to be here, Barbara.
Thank you. And now our expert, not that you're not an expert as well, Tanika, you might be, but this woman, Anne Marie Hoyt, you have your master's degree in what?
Mass communication.
Mass communication. And so you've done a little bit of study on social media, right?
I've done quite a lot of study on social media, actually. It was one of my focuses, was social media and digital marketing.
Okay, so we're going to be talking about that, and we're going to be hopefully having you help us to guide and direct some of the boundaries, parameters, guidelines, some things that we need to be placing in our homes to keep our kids safe. The other ladies, before we get to you, Anne-Marie, are you guys a little concerned, including you, Tanika, about social media?
Yes.
What are you doing? Are you doing anything about it?
We're working on it. I mean, my kids don't have social media. They're not interested in that just yet. But my magician son, Charlie, is really interested in magic. And so he goes on YouTube to watch magicians all the time. But I'm so nervous about it because I hate YouTube. And YouTube has its purposes and it's good. But there's YouTube can stray very quickly into very negative regions that an 11-year-old boy.
You know who taught me that? Anne-Marie. I didn't know that because Charlie, the magician, was at my house on YouTube all the time, and I was telling Anne-Marie about it one day at work, and she said, Barbara, he shouldn't be on YouTube.
Yeah.
So,
Alone. Unsupervised.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So that's what you do, Kristen?
No, I'm not. I'm not on top of him all the time. We have some work cut out for us, for sure, in our household. So I'm really looking forward to this segment. I'm just going to glean lots of information from you.
I hope I can help.
What else?
Well, for me, I've got a 15, a 12, and an 8-year-old, and they are all into. They go to the computers. My 8-year-old daughter knows how to work a computer. If I don't know how to work it, I bring it to her. What do I do here? They're so savvy. Anymore, you have 2-year-olds. I don't know if you see them going around Target or Walmart, man, they are whipping that thing around like it ain't nobody's business. So, we did do some things where we put some monitors or whatever that's called, filters. Is it called a filter?
There are different words for them: monitoring software, restrictive software, filtering.
Yeah, we did do that because we had a sweet friend that their son just YouTubing up games and movies. All of a sudden, pop-ups started coming up of girls in not appropriate attire, which meaning hardly none, and got him into pornography at like 13 years old. And that's when I started realizing, I didn't even know that. Our generation, it's not something we did a lot. It wasn't our pastime. So understanding kids aren't playing with Legos, they're playing with computers, and it's just we need to be wise to understand it's a whole new world out there. That's why I'm glad she's here.
Yeah, they're playing with apps.
Yeah,
they're playing online. They're doing interactive gaming. All of these things are social media. If there's a social component to them, if there's an interactive connection digitally, I would classify that as social media. I would even classify YouTube as social media because you're learning from influencers, you're learning from people who are creating their own content, and there is the chat aspect and the commenting aspect,
On YouTube,
you can comment.
You can comment.
I know you can comment.
You can comment.
You can't really, it's a video. It's not live.
Okay. Right, but you can comment, and then someone else can, so you can read comments,
Sure.
you can read other
Okay.
people's opinions, and people can
So
write
give
what
us
they want to write.
a good definition of social media. Well, I know you sort of said it just then, but just capsulize it and tell us what social media is.
Sure. Well, if I may, I'd like to start with a scripture. Can I do that?
Yes,
Because
yes.
I feel like this is an area, like Kristen was saying, where we don't feel very confident as parents or grandparents. And I feel like I wanted to just share with us all 2 Corinthians 12:9. But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. And so I feel like that you may think, well, what does that apply? How does that apply here? And I just feel like as parents, we're not strangers to moments of weakness. And so I think of that scripture, and I think that it's important for us to remember that God is our resting place. Even though we may have allowed those boundaries to go farther than we may have intended, or farther than we now realize is prudent, God is our resting place, especially in our times of weakness. And I do think that it's confusing, and there's so much to know and so much to try to learn, and there's a learning curve if our children are farther along than we are. So I just want to offer that to parents at home, especially, and to all of us here, that that's important.
Okay, now define social media. That was great. Thank you. Very good. Yes.
To me, so like I said, social media is anything that's interactive digitally, where you are able to connect with another person. So I think of text messaging as social media because they're group chats. I think of YouTube.
Thank God, so I am in the social media. Not feeling so old. Whew, thank God.
I often want to remind parents that gaming, online gaming, even apps with games in terms of like Clash of Clans, Clash Royale, Roblox is an online gaming a site that a lot of young kids are on, and there is a chat function. If there is a chat function or a listening function or an interactive feature where you can connect with someone else digitally, it's not just the Facebook, the Snapchat, the Instagram.
It's the games.
It's all of it.
Can they find, like, because my kids love Roblox. They love Roblox. Even my 8-year-old loves Roblox. She wants to do that. They have people, and it makes me nervous because you hear stories of people who come and find those kids, and they do not nice things, and I'm like, and you can't do that. She's like, no, Mom, they don't know who I am. Well, is that true that they don't know who they are, don't know how to find them? Can they find them?
Sure. And so for our viewers who might not know what Roblox is, Roblox is an online gaming site, if you will. It kind of houses a lot of opportunities for kids to play different games.
So it's not a game. It's a place where you can go to a lot of games.
Yes.
Okay.
Like how many different games?
A lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's an app on your phone?
It can be an app.
Okay.
You can download it as an app, but you can also play it on a computer.
Okay.
And you can interact with folks through it in a chat that you don't know.
Right. Well, my son plays Clash of Clans, so I know that there is a chat. But keep going, because I don't know about Roblox.
But Roblox I tend to find younger kids are on Roblox, but that's not necessarily a universal thing, because there are lots of different games that you can play there. I would say that the key is a certain level of trust. So if you teach your child to not share personal information, so if they're just talking about the game, you can only talk about the game, meaning, hey, let's go over here, or let's all gather over here, or let's go to this place and do this thing, kind of a interaction. I think that there's a level of trust, but
isn't the most savvy kid, can't he be duped?
I think it's dangerous.
Yeah.
I think Roblox and other games like it can be dangerous. I don't want to paint with too broad strokes, because I feel like every parent is different in terms of where that line is for them. And you have the parents who are like, my kid's not getting Instagram till they're 16. My kid's not going to be able to post on Facebook or whatever platform they want to until they're at college. I personally feel like there's a good aspect to having children make mistakes or explore things underneath while they're still at home, because you are still there to guide them and to guard them.
Except there are some costly mistakes out there.
But there are some costly mistakes. So to avoid mistakes, you can have things like filtering and monitoring and other apps. But
okay, what's your situation, Tanika?
Well, I have a 13-year-old and a 9-year-old, and they just don't. Now, you've enlightened me, because when you said YouTube, my eyes went, oh my gosh, they're on YouTube. But it's always just this little gateway that you have these people who intend harm on any child. And so it may start off as innocent, where they're talking about the game, where you say, okay, you can talk about the game, but once they become comfortable with talking to this person, it'll lead to something else.
That's right.
That's my fear. How do you properly train your children to be aware of people that are as manipulative and conniving like that?
I think it's a challenge. It's a tremendous challenge. But I think in the same way that our parents taught us not to talk to strangers, and actually even would go through scenarios with us. Do y'all remember that? Like if someone asks you to come into a van and look at a puppy, or offers candy. That was the old one that everyone said. Or if someone says, your parent's in trouble. So I think role playing can be very valuable, especially with younger children when they're more receptive. And I think the earlier you start with those sort of conversations, the easier they are to have, and the easier sort of guidelines are able to be put in place.
But I find that the texting, it's something different than somebody walking up to you, because you feel so safe behind that. And one of my friends actually, and I actually looked up some more stuff on it because it's so interesting. They did one of those fake things where they went and had the big talk with their kids. Have you had friends that have done that?
Well, I've seen it on TV.
And they show them video of people texting and saying, meet me here, and then they go and the people take them. Well, they set it up and had a truck, and let be to hold if that girl did not get in that truck. And so last night, my husband and I, we were just sitting there going, let's just look up this and let's see how many kids actually do this. You would not believe, after they have these conversations, they start texting, boys and girls, and they end up in these, they'll go into people's homes. They think, oh, it's just a 12-year-old girl. Well, it wasn't even that a 12-year-old at all. So there's something about, and it's funny because we both looked up the same scripture, but it's in 2 John 1:12. It says, though I have much to write to you, I would rather not use paper and ink. Instead, I hope to come to you and talk face to face so that our joy may be complete. And I love that. I think it's so, don't you think it's so real for now? Because we've lost that whole gift of picking up a phone and calling somebody or saying, can we go have lunch? I can't tell you how many kids who come to our Wednesday nights, we get together with a whole bunch of kids, that their social media, their social life is this or games. People they've never met before.
Well, I think it's a word that we've used a lot on here, and I think it's one that we should use with all of our families, and it's balance. Back in my day, in the dark ages, the caveman times, we went outside to play, and we made up imaginary games. Or if I was by myself, I learned how to play by myself. And I have a very vivid imagination. I don't know if that's because that was what had to happen with me and with people in my generation. But if we make our kids turn off their games, their machines, their phones, their whatever they have, go outside and just play. And I know you do that with your kids, and I know that's the balance. Social media in and of itself is not bad, Anne-Marie. You would say that, right? It's not bad in and of itself.
I would absolutely say that. I think that social media is a way to connect with other people who live far from you. I also think that even as Christians, we're able to connect with influencers and authors, and teenagers and young people are able to see people and be inspired by role models. And especially, sharing scripture and sharing positive things. There's so many benefits to being able to connect with folks that are teachers in terms of scripture and messages. And
so let's ask for some guidelines. Let's get real practical here. If you had, and we have so many different age groups on the panel of what your children are, when should a child have a cell phone? What are some age-appropriate things, and what are some hours of the day that a child should be spending on social media as opposed to going outside and playing sports or doing something else? Give us some of your thoughts on all that.
Well, again, I don't want to paint with too broad a brush, because I know that I know what my rules are and what I believe is right for my child and my family, where he is in his life at his age. I also am part of a split family in the sense that he goes to his father's house. But every one of our children goes to other people's homes and has that sort of influence or open door or whatever. So it's important for us to talk to our child's or children's parents, friends' parents. It's important for us to know what their rules. Do they have a monitoring software on at their house? What are their rules? In the same way that if our child was going on an overnight, we would ask, are there any guns in the house? And, do you have monitoring software? Those sort of things.
You, as a parent, would ask the parent that before they spend
Yes,
the night
I do.
there?
I absolutely do.
I think that's really important.
I ask those questions.
Yeah.
And I've never had, for people who are worried about that, I've never had a parent respond negatively. In fact, I've had more parents thank me for asking. And I think that it's part of today's society. It's part of our culture. You want to know what the rules are.
Yeah.
In the same way that you would say, don't take my kid to see an R-rated movie. It's what are the restrictions that are happening, at your house.
What is a healthy sort of parameter for hours on a screen in a given day, do you think?
I think it depends on the. I don't want to say. I know
Well,
that
Kristen
sounds,
has some. What are some of your
Well,
rules?
I don't know. I mean, I feel like I've heard and read that a child shouldn't be on a screen for longer. Is it like 2 hours a day?
I think that's what I've heard too.
My kids go to a school where in 2nd or 3rd grade, they start using a computer in every class all day. So my 3rd grader and my 5th grader now have their own laptops, Chromebooks that they bring home. So they're on screens at school, working on a school. When they come home, there's no screens during the week.
No homework on the screens?
Well, they might have to do. We're in a weird year this year where they don't really have a lot of homework yet.
Okay.
But they don't get to do right now fun activities on a screen.
Okay.
They can on the weekends, but during the week they need to be outside. They need to be playing. They need to do their homework. But I want them to come home and be kids.
Yeah, and just to clarify, I mean, that is my desire for my child as well. I mean, I want that for my child. He is an only child, and he does have a vivid imagination, and so I don't have a problem with him wanting to play on his own. He's always been able to entertain himself. You mentioned Chromebooks. If I may, I will say that they are an excellent option for parents because they are very easily configured and able to be monitored. So if someone's looking for an easily monitored device.
What do you mean by doing that? You have to buy software for the Chromebook, or
no?
What do you do?
Chromebook is just inherently
It's
able
already
to be
able to. Okay,
You can set
that's
up.
good to know.
Set it up so you can see everything. They can't erase it. If they did,
You would know on a Chromebook.
They can, but you can set up restrictions, and not restrictions in terms of stopping things completely, but to the point where it restricts certain kind of content.
Oh, that's good.
And also where it can, and it's not a perfect system, but it also will allow you to know what they are looking at. And if they decide to reset it, you will know that as well. So that's a good thing. I will also say, please don't ever give your child your passwords. Too many people I know hand their kids their phones, and their kids know their parents' passwords on their phone. I think your phone should be your phone. If your child has a smartphone, you should have the password. You should have all their social media passwords. The moment they don't allow you to do a phone check or whatever you call it in your house, where you can say, okay, what are you looking at? Or take off your headphones, what are you listening to?
You do that fairly regularly. That's routine for you to check your kids' phones.
Yes.
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 And I have older kids, so let me just say that for a very, very long time, and I know my daughter hated it, but I read everything that was on her phone. It was just a really good check-in to know who she was talking to, what was going on. Now that she's getting ready to go to college, I don't do it. I did get busted by her this summer doing it again, and she was like, "Mom, you don't trust me?" And I said, "It's not that I don't trust you. It was really her heart had been hurt, and I said, I'm really trying to check in on how you're feeling, without and she's like, well, just ask me. And so I was like, busted. But listen, I do not apologize. And I said, I own the phone. I pay for that phone. I should be allowed, there shouldn't be anything that you don't want me to read on that phone. So I've said that to my kids from a very early age. My son's 14. His phone has to go on the counter at night, but he is allowed to have it in his room. And he's in 8th grade, and but at night it comes in, and so at night I go in and I look at everything. Now I do not like Snapchat. That is I think a bad. But I have not taken. I mean, they're allowed to use it, but I have got to build their trust. I mean, it's a trust thing that we're that we're working through, and they tell me things. So it goes a little bit back to that candy analogy. I think if I took it all away, they might go crazy, you know. But there's a balance in
There
it
is a
for
balance.
sure.
But the problem too is that there really is not, I said this at the top of the show, there really is not a precedent for this yet. This has not been around long enough for us to understand. So Anne-Marie, my challenge to you is to write a book. Doggone it, get a book out there. So we know, this is for
Just write a
grandparents
book.
only, for parents only, for moms, for dads, for single parents. I mean, there are so many things that we need to know. And I guess the bottom line is just stay vigilant, continue to be involved in your children's lives. We are going to make mistakes, but we serve a God who is a God of redemption. He can make everything okay. And I love that we didn't do a lot of scripture, but we will understand that everything goes back to God's word and his control in our lives and his obvious omnipotence and omnipresence in our lives. So we're going to be talking to Anne-Marie one-on-one in just a little bit, so you don't want to go away. Stay with us, and we'll be right back.
I think one of the dangers is the sin of comparison. I think especially with teenagers, that's a huge danger involved in social media. The platforms are so visual, especially Instagram, which is so popular right now with the teenagers. And they're looking at, well, how do I look? And they're being judged. They feel their worth through the likes that they get and the followers.
Hi everyone, I'm Barbara Beck, host of Welcome Home, and I want to let you know how very grateful we are to you for supporting your Good Life 45 Christian station. So many of you pray for us, and we really love that. You're partners with us, and we consider you family. And then lots of you are our financial partners. We really need you and are so thankful for you sharing our vision to reach the world for Christ. Again, you're a vital part of our Good Life 45 family. Perhaps you out there today are wanting to be part of our ministry here at Good Life 45. Please know that no matter how small or large your gift is, if God is prompting you to be part of our family, then let me encourage you to act on it. Covering us with your prayers for continued faithfulness and strength are so important. There's nothing better that you could do for our ministry than pray. But some of you know that you can do both. You can pray and you can give. It's safe and secure to go to our website, goodlife45.org, and simply click on Donate, or give to us by writing to the address on your screen. Either way, you're helping us continue to give you the very best in Christian and family television that is honoring to God. Be part of us, won't you? Thank you, dear friends, and God bless you. I am so glad that you're with us today, viewers. This is such an important program, not only for you, but for me. I need to be learning all of these ways that we can safeguard our children and our grandchildren, and we have a responsibility as parents when we're sitting, when we're lying down, when we're walking along the road. In every aspect of our lives, Jesus expects us to be informed, to be responsible, and to help to really raise our children to be that way as well, and to seek your best for their lives. And so our expert guest today, Anne-Marie Hoyt, is here to help us understand the perils of social media as well as what we can do to avoid some of those pitfalls. Thank you, Anne-Marie, so much for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure.
Love having you,
It's
and we're
great being
trying to keep you quiet on current so that you could give us all of the details now, right? All right,
looking
so
forward to it.
whatever even got you interested in social media? Why? I mean, I don't have a lot of interest in social media. Why you?
Well, I just really like the idea of the way that it can connect us.
Okay.
There are a lot of really great things about social media. It does have dangers, like many things in life, but it's a wonderful way to stay connected with people that you may not live close with, or just in this digital age, it's just a really, really good way to.
Right. I like that. Okay, so maybe now I'll say I do like social media because I do want to be a relational person. I do like relationships. I want to connect with people, but I've not utilized it fully. Obviously, it has a lot to do with the generational difference here, but it also has to do with placing ourselves in a position to be informed and to be educated. I mean, my 94-year-old mother, before she got dementia, she was texting and she was using social media in a very limited sense, but it still helped her stay more connected with all of us. So what is your background? Because you're well versed in social media. You have your master's, right?
I have my master's in mass communication from the University of Florida.
Did that help with
Go
social
Gators.
media? Yeah, go Gators.
I studied digital and social media was my focus of my program when I went there.
A little bit about Anne-Marie as a little girl growing up. Who are you? You know what? I don't think I've ever even asked you that. I know you grew up in the Northeast, right?
I did. I grew up in New Jersey, although my accent apparently doesn't betray that.
No, it doesn't.
My father is an Episcopal priest. He's now retired. He was called to a church here in the Orlando area, St. Michael's Church, when I was in college.
Okay.
I grew up a preacher's kid. I have one sister. She's older, a very, very faithful, loving, servant-hearted mother. I really was blessed in my home environment.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it.
Did you know Jesus at a very young age?
I did. I really just grew up in an environment where Jesus and God were just a given in my life. So I don't know that I really accepted God as my Savior personally until later in life, when I was in my early 20s. And I remember the moment, actually.
You do?
But I was at a youth retreat.
Yeah. And so did it make an enormous difference in your life, or maybe not because you'd already been kind of a disciplined follower of Christ?
Yeah, it did make a difference in the sense that it was something that I took ownership of at that time.
Okay.
But I was very blessed in my spiritual upbringing with people who modeled godly behavior.
Would you say through your childhood, teenage years, young 20s that you didn't have a lot of rebellion in your life?
I don't know if I would say that. I think that my rebellion is probably more mild than some, perhaps. But I, by no means, lived a perfect life or an ideal Christian life, if you will, if there is such a thing. I definitely think that the path that God brought me on throughout my life has brought me closer to Him. So I'm grateful for challenges that I've had and for perhaps stumbles that I've
because it does. That's where we go to God, it seems like. When we're in the pits, that's when we seek His face. At what point did you start even hearing about social media and what that was? And what is social media? I mean, it encompasses so many different things, right?
It really does. And so I'm not what we refer to in the business as a digital native. So my son, I have a 12-year-old son. He would be
a
considered
digital native. I have no idea what that is.
A digital native is someone who's never really known a life without
it, like your son.
Without this kind of technology.
Okay.
So when you see toddlers and they're looking at a picture frame and they swipe across it with their finger like they think it's an iPad, they're digital natives. This is just something that's natural to them to look around themselves and see frames that come alive with video. I think about family and friends that I have that live overseas. I haven't met some of their children except through a screen. And that's what they're used to in terms of communication. So, you know, that's not what I grew up with, given my age. I grew up where computers were emerging and the technology was exciting, and having a desktop computer in my house was really a thrill.
Cutting edge, yes.
You know, and we had a dial-up modem, and you heard the beeps and the the buzzers going off when you connected. And sometimes it didn't work, and everyone had an AOL screen name, and they were really strange and kind of funny. But yeah, so I learned word processing in high school and all that sort of thing. So I grew as technology was emerging, and I just feel like so much of our society has seen just this exponential development and growth in technology. I don't know, things that we saw in like Back to the Future, like the movie, like the hoverboards and all these sort of like video conferencing that we thought was just going to be so far out there, and it's really commonplace right now. We use these apps, we use this technology, we use this social media to communicate all the time, sometimes without really even realizing it. So social media, to me, is anything that connects us with other people using digital technology.
Okay.
I think more often than not, we think of it as the things on our phones, frankly, because most of us have smartphones at this point.
Right.
So it's things like Facebook, the obvious ones, Instagram, Snapchat, all the apps that are out, all the platforms, if you will, where you can have a profile and connect with people you know or people that you don't know, perhaps. But it's also things like apps and group chats, and even like how people play on their Xbox or another sort of gaming system if they're connected with a headset, or even things like a gaming app. Like I know plenty of kids who play things like Clash of Clans and Clash Royale and Roblox
with other people.
Anything that's connecting you digitally to another person. I mean, I work at a local Christian school here in the area near the station, and we define social media as anything that connects us with other people. So anything that you're connected.
That's broad. That's a broad definition.
It is a broad definition, but it's helpful when it in terms of trying to frame a discussion about it, I think.
So why are so many of our kids on social media? I love that native. I've never heard that. A digital native? Is that what you said?
Digital native.
Digital native. Why are, and my grandchildren are digital natives. They definitely are. When I can remember asking Charlie or one of the little ones saying, can you fast forward that TV show? There would be a cartoon on, and I'm like, I can't fast forward it. It's what's on right now. What's a commercial? They didn't know what a commercial was because they're not used to that. They did not grow up with commercials. So why are they choosing digital, social media kinds of things rather than television? My grandchildren don't watch television per se very much at all.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of television or streaming content, if you will, is really popular still with my generation, with my child's generation. But it's not just that they're watching while they're talking to someone. Or my son, I will also often find him where he wants to be playing with a friend, but he's not playing face to face. He lives far away from some of his friends, so he will do something like play a connected game on his laptop. While he will have a voice chat going on so they can see each other and talk to each other while they're playing. Wow.
You think that's a good thing?
I think that there is, again, I think that there can be a good thing to that. I mean, he's talking with someone that he knows. This is a child he's known since he was 2, in the case that I'm thinking of. And they can't get together in person because their schedules don't allow it. They live far apart. They don't go to the same school, but they're still close. And so it's a way that they can play together. This is how kids play together.
So that's
in many
one
cases.
good thing about social media. Why don't you name, and then we're going to talk about some bad things, and we're going to talk about some things, some safeguards that are out there that we don't know about. What are some other good things about social media? Because we always say, oh, too much screen time. You're doing too much. Why don't you da-da-da? Anyway, what are some other good things about social media?
Well, I think that there are things that would be good regardless of the platform, if you will. So it's again, that ability to connect with people. I personally have met people through social media that I wouldn't have known otherwise who have positively impacted my life. I've been able to, again, connect with people that are close to me that I don't get to be near. I have most of my family lives overseas at this point. My mom and dad are retired. They moved overseas. My sister lives overseas. My best friend lives overseas. And so my son, as a 12-year-old, has strong relationships that he's been able to maintain with those people because of apps that have a video conferencing ability, because he can message people. So, and I think that there's a valuable aspect to that. I mean, I know when you asked me to come on to this segment, I crowdsourced my friends on social media. I did what any social media professional would do, and I used the platform to find out more about what they we're doing in terms of prevention, in terms of allowances, things like that. So it's a good way to gather information too.
Okay. So let's say it's socially good in a lot of ways, can be socially good, intellectually maybe good, informationally maybe. Do you think that it is good for kids as far as growing in their intellectual ability?
Well, I think there's a lot of value that can be had through things like social media. I think of YouTube as a social media, if you will, because we're sharing things. We're able to interact on YouTube through the comment sections. So it's not an isolated, standalone, non-interactive platform. There's tons of things that you can learn on YouTube that are really valuable, even to children. Different ways to do homework. There's different ways to learn how to get better in a sport. There's a lot of value.
I've got a good
there.
one for you. My grandson is into magic right now.
There
And
you
he
go.
has learned so many magic tricks, and he'll come over and he'll show me a magic trick with cards. I'm like, where did you learn that?
YouTube.
He did. He said YouTube. I Googled it and I figured it out. So I guess
Absolutely.
there are some good things. Obviously, there are some good things about social media. We, as people in my generation, and maybe even some people in your generation, also have fears and concerns, like the current ladies.
Sure.
What are some of the negative things about social media?
Well, there are dangers, obviously, with something that is so far-reaching. You can reach people that you know, but you can also reach people that you don't know and get, there can be contact there. There can also be things like bullying. Social media is a place where bullying happens, where people can get into real trouble with that sort of thing. Obviously, we've talked on this program before. I've heard you talk about things like trafficking. So there's that whole luring aspect, which is a danger, of course.
What about the social? I know you're saying there's a lot of social interaction. That's one of the good things. But are there dangers as far as being able to be adept at social interaction face to face when all you are used to doing is typing your responses, or maybe you're seeing somebody on a screen? But do you think it inhibits or it even dwarfs somebody's ability to socialize?
Well, I think that when I think of adults, I don't necessarily think of this as a problem for children. I think that social media can give people anonymity in a way that's not healthy. So in that sense, people are, we hear all the time about people commenting on businesses even that they
you would never say
that you would
in
never
person.
say in person, much less to an individual. So I think that there's danger in the anonymity involved in social media that's inherent in social media unless you choose to be a public persona or be yourself. You can choose to just put any name and any picture up, and who knows who you are.
Right. Well, what about the kid that goes to his room immediately he gets home from school? Maybe he does his homework, maybe he doesn't, but he's in his room with his computer, with his phone, and he has zero one-on-one, in-person social interaction until he goes to bed at night or sees the family for dinner. That can't be healthy.
And I don't think that it is. And I think that too much of most things can be a bad thing.
True.
And when I think of that, I think of that's where we as parents and involved adults need to step in and set healthy boundaries for kids who are unable to do that themselves. And I think, again, that's an outlook that can pertain to a lot of things.
True. But we have no precedent set either for this. This is a generation where the parents are, for the first time, having to figure out those boundaries and those parameters. Well, how do you know what's a good rule? Charlie, when you get home from school, you got to spend an hour on homework, then you can go to your room for what, an hour? I don't know. What are some of the things that you've done with your son?
So a lot of what I hear from my friends, and again, I do think it's important as a parent to ask your friends. Ask other parents what they're doing.
That's why we're talking about it, right?
Absolutely. But you can often get a lot of ideas through what's worked for your friends. Now, every child's different, and so what works for your friends may not work for your family. I mean, every child's currency, if you will, is a little different.
True.
And it can change based on their age, too. So I definitely think that having healthy boundaries in terms of screen time in general is a good thing in terms of a child's development.
What's healthy screen time? What would you say?
Well, I think that, coming home and watching TV, is that okay? Some parents might say yes. Some parents might say no based on the child, their own child. some people I know want their kids to have their homework finished. Some people I know have no screen time at all during the week, and it's only for the weekends. It's really about what you have discovered is the right level of allowance for your own child.
Yeah, but we don't really know because, again, there's no precedent for that. So I think it's
trial and error.
That's what I was going to say. I want our viewers to at least have the freedom to know that it's okay to make some mistakes and to say, okay, we're going to have an hour worth of screen time. Oh, no, that didn't work. A month later, you're like, no, an hour is never going to work. It needs to be 30 minutes or it needs to be not at all except on the weekends. So, I wish there were a book that we could read and we would say, this child needs this child needs that. But that's not practical and that's never going to happen. Talk to us, Anne-Marie, about dangers.
Okay.
We talked a little bit about
Sure.
people that you meet that you don't know, but there are chat rooms and there are, and you got your kid off in their room and you don't know who they're talking to.
So you've mentioned it a couple times in their room. I do think that it's a good idea to keep devices in public areas.
Okay.
That's my own personal feeling. And
You
I
never let
know,
your son go in his room with a device?
I don't think it's a good idea.
Okay, good.
And that's kind of a closed door just mentality that, a bedroom is a place for sleeping.
Okay.
Or playing.
Right.
But we have common areas in our home, and those are where we
Good.
are.
I love
Where the
that.
computer is in a common area. He does his homework out, in case he has questions, things like that. But he's not in his room.
But he's 12.
It's that isolation again.
He's 12 years old. What's it going to be like when he's 17 and he has his phone? You going to still keep the phone out in the kitchen?
Well, again, we'll see. It's trial and error.
Yeah.
It's trial and error.
Yeah.
Like most parents, I'm going at this.
Right.
Doing
and
my
you're
best.
the expert, Anne-Marie, and you're still, trying to figure it out. It's hard, right?
Well, it's interesting. I disciple some girls at the school where I work, and I have 8th and 10th grade girls, and we often talk about devices and things that are happening and what they're doing, and many of them have said that their devices are a black hole for their time.
Wow.
And so I remember around finals last year, one of them said to me, "I need to text my mom to have her take away my phone tonight, so I don't get sucked in and can study." And so I think that they're aware of it, whether or not they follow through and decide to put a device, we're in a place where they can't access it.
Do they really have that capacity as a teenager? We always hear about your frontal lobe is not even developed until you're 25 years old. How can we expect our teenager to have that kind of discipline and understanding? They're not, right?
I think it depends on the individual. I think some kids are making really great choices when it comes to digital connections. I know some kids who are really excited every single time they get a follower and feel a lot of need for the likes. You talked about asking me about the dangers. I think one of the dangers is the sin of comparison. I think especially with teenagers, that's a huge danger involved in social media. The platforms are so visual, especially Instagram, which is so popular right now with the teenagers. And they're looking at, well, how do I look? And they're being judged. They feel their worth through the likes that they get and the followers that they get, and that's not of God. That's not how God sees us, but that's how the world is, and that's what they're getting from the world.
So give us some examples of safeguards, because I know that you're the first person that ever told me that YouTube was a bad thing for my grandson to be able to have carte blanche. Obviously, like you just said, there's some good things on there. He's learned to do magic tricks. He's, enjoying some educational type things as well. But to just carte blanche give them YouTube is not a good thing.
I don't believe it is.
Right.
For a lot of reasons, really. There are things that can just pop up on YouTube that really can be damaging. To anyone. Pornography.
Why?
Absolutely.
Why would it pop up? What gives them the right to do that? I don't understand that.
So how YouTube works is you'll be watching a video, and sometimes just in a video you might find something that someone hid, which is really, really malicious, but occasionally happens. I know people to whom that have happened.
What do you mean they hid? What do you mean?
An image
will
come up in the middle
Okay.
You know, that's not the norm.
Okay.
But I do know people that it's happened to. I will say that you know, people watch videos about all sorts of things, and you don't know what the language is in that video. So sometimes it's just the language. You know, a child watching a video about something that they think is safe, and then they hear the F word.
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you know? Are you sitting there behind Jack and watching what he watches on YouTube?
That was when my son was really young. He's only 12 now, but when he was younger, my rule was he couldn't watch it alone.
Okay.
And he was really, really responsive to that, in the sense that if someone would say something that he thought was inappropriate, even a word that wouldn't be considered profanity by most people, he would turn to me and go, you know, like, and then he would turn it off and he would recognize. Maybe that was just because I was there, though. I don't know, you know? So I think being aware, being involved is important as a parent. As you mentioned, I explained to you about YouTube. I think educating yourself as a parent is really important. Whether that means Googling it yourself. How do I put the restrictions on YouTube? Because there are restrictions built into YouTube.
That's what I want you to tell us about. What are some of these controls or safeguards that we can put into place? What are they called? Parents, get a pen and pencil down right now and start writing some of this down.
Well, there are a lot of them. There's monitoring software.
That you have to buy separate.
Oftentimes you have to buy a subscription to them. There are lots out there. I mean, I would just recommend actually that parents Google monitoring software. There's the kind of software that actually blocks sites, and you can actually dial it to the level that is appropriate in your estimation to where your child's development is and age.
Where do you find that?
On the internet. They're all cloud-based programs that you can download and install on your laptop or have an app install on your phone. There are some that will apply to laptops and phones and all devices, things like that.
You would have to put them on each different device, or can you put them on one place and it handles everything?
You usually have to download them on all places.
Okay. So for sure, where would you say the first place is that you should have safeguards? A phone or a computer?
Well, I know plenty of parents. I actually think both are equally important. In the generation of young people right now, I would say if you have a child that has a smartphone and they do not have safeguards on there, then I would encourage you to, number one, check your child's phone. Don't just assume that they're doing the right things.
What are you checking for on the phone? The history of their calls, or
yeah, absolutely. Well, not their history.
Okay.
I mean, checking something like a YouTube history.
Okay.
My son stumbled across a video that was inappropriate on YouTube. And I know he stumbled across it because I checked his search history. On YouTube, you can go and see what your child is searching for.
Okay.
So you can see, hey, they're not looking for trouble. Most kids aren't looking for trouble. Now some are. Yeah. Some are curious, and we as parents having safeguards in place, like a monitoring software, like a there's monitoring and then there's restricting software, and some do both and some only do one. So a monitoring software would be something that allows you to see what your child is viewing. There are some out there that don't allow your child to delete texts or save those delete texts and things like that for you to see later. Wow. So there's all sorts. So it's really about doing your own research as a parent and seeing what's possible. Where do I fit on this range of monitoring versus restricting? But I do think that you should check. I think that you should know who their friends are, know who your kids' friends are and what they're doing. Talk to other parents. I think that it's really important to just be engaged with your kids. And I think one of the most important things we can do, besides checking and being involved, is modeling really good behavior to our kids. So if we're sitting there with our noses in our phones, not answering or half answering our kids when they're trying to talk to us, or when it's family time or right after dinner, I mean, I don't think that that's right. I don't think that that's good. Right. I think that we need to be modeling good behavior.
Thank you, Anne Marie Hoyt, for all of these great recommendations, advice, and information. And if you want more information, I'm sure that you can get in touch with Anne Marie here at the station. I forgot to mention that she is our social media director here at Good Life 45, and she helps us out with so many things. I'm sure she'd be happy to answer any of your questions. If you have more questions, the main thing is be aware, be involved, know what your kids are watching, set some parameters, set some guidelines, some boundaries, and good luck, because it is going to be a tough road ahead of us. I'm glad I have grandchildren and not young children today. We've got more coming up, so stay with us. Hi everyone, what's cooking in the kitchen today with John Rivers from Four Rivers Smokehouse and The Coop. And we always, John, have so much fun in the kitchen, don't we?
Absolutely, we
I
do.
love it. And today you were doing something super, super healthy.
I am.
Right?
Sure, yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Well, I
this
see all
one
these
is super,
vegetables.
super special to me in a family.
Yes.
My grandma is from the Charleston area in Beaufort. And so most of the recipes that we have at the Coop are really influenced by her.
Sure.
And everything that she taught me. And this is one of the special dishes that we make, and it's called Hoppin' John.
Hoppin' John.
Okay, and
Did
it's-
you make that up?
No, it's an old name, and there's a lot of
Oh,
mystery.
it's not after you. I thought it was after you.
No,
well,
no,
you
I
just
can't take credit for
Hoppin'
that.
John Rivers, and it'll be your recipe. That is great. Okay, so you're sauteing some bacon.
Yeah, so I've got some bacon in here. Now, one of the keys to this recipe is a smoked ham hock.
That's a ham hock. You can buy that just like that.
Yeah, get this at the grocery
You don't have
store.
to have the big ham.
No, already
Okay.
done. And I use the same ham hock, and we use it in collards and in green beans. It just drives a lot of flavor.
Oh, I know.
Okay, it's a salty and the smoky. So I'll boil this because
Okay.
I get it cold. I'll boil it. And then after we boil it, we go ahead and we chop it up
Okay.
and put it into pieces like this. Now, in here as a base, I've got our bacon going, so that's creating our grease for us. And we're going to go ahead now and start layering. That's the nice thing about this dish. The most difficult thing and most time-consuming is really just chopping everything up
Sure.
and getting it ready.
Sure.
So that smoked ham hock's going to go in.
Okay.
We're going to add some onions to it.
I'm sure your grandmother used Vidalia.
Always,
onions, right?
always a sweet Vidalia
Yeah.
onion. Okay, we'll let those sweat. And once you go ahead, would you pour in the celery? Okay. Now,
See, that's what I mean about healthy.
yes.
Celery,
yes,
onions, yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. These guys are going to cook down for a while, but we're going to go ahead and expedite it, you know, and help
So
it
would you
go.
let it cook until the vegetables get kind of mushy, or do you like them
Soft.
crunchy?
No, I like the onion needs to be transparent.
Okay.
Okay, so you want to be able to see through it.
Okay.
And actually, another trick to doing this is you cut your vegetables a lot smaller than this, and they will cook a lot
faster. Yes.
And yeah, these are
Right.
too big. It's I like things to be in bite size, so that when you're getting into it.
Yeah.
So this would probably take a good 10 minutes to cook down.
Yeah.
But let's just pretend like it did.
We'll pretend like it did.
We'll go
Okay.
ahead and add some spices to it. We'll put our salt.
Of course, sea
pepper.
salt, a little bit of pepper.
Yes.
You
Great.
always like cayenne. Everything that I taste of yours has a little kick to it, and
Just
I
a
love
little,
it. Little
just
tiny,
a
tiny
little.
bit of cayenne.
It's a thin line because not everyone likes hot, but you like
Well,
that.
this is if this is water, I'm like, why bother?
No, that is vinegar.
Oh yes, it is. It's
That is
vinegar. Are you
vinegar.
ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Okay, and that's just going to give it a little bit of balance.
Okay.
Okay. We're going to go ahead and we got some garlic.
You want that bay leaf in there?
Sure, it goes in there too.
That's a lot of garlic. How much is that?
We
Couple
really need
teaspoons?
about a teaspoon or tablespoon, so we'll
Okay,
put about
yeah, let's
half of
do it.
that
Let's
in
do-
there.
all
That-
right.
That'll knock you over.
Yes, it would.
Okay, now,
Just-
really, we wouldn't be putting the stuff in until everything is cooked
Right,
down, but just
right.
to give you an idea about it.
But this recipe, as all of our your recipes are up. John shares. He's a Christian. He likes to share, and they're all on our website or
Yes.
on Facebook, so you can find these recipes. This is a big old slab of butter.
Yes, yep, that
We're
makes
gonna
it-
put that in there?
Yes, please.
Yay, I love my
That's
butter.
going to give it some creaminess.
Okay.
Okay. Now, once this is really, really, really cooked down, okay, we're going to add to it a few other ingredients.
Okay.
We have some chicken broth.
And you just
okay?
buy canned chicken broth.
You can buy a canned chicken broth.
Your grandmother, I know where she would get her chicken
Absolutely.
broth. Right?
Well,
She's
that,
going to be
you
boiling her
you
chicken.
use everything.
I know.
You don't
I
throw
know.
away bones. You don't
Right.
throw away skin.
Exactly.
Until you boil. I mean, even the vegetables. vegetables that you cut up.
Yeah.
You use the tops and the heads.
Absolutely,
And
yeah.
That makes the best broth that you can get.
Are we going with the tomatoes?
Well, this would go in it. We'd add tomatoes to it.
But you're not doing it yet because you want this to
It
cook
is.
down.
Oh yeah, but I've got
Okay.
a finished product just for us.
Oh, yay. Okay.
And these are the core ingredients. Okay.
Black-eyed peas. Now, I'm telling you, these are probably canned
probably.
because, right? I mean, you just have to save time. But John's grandmother and my grandmother and even me, and I'm a grandmother, so it counts, but we shell black-eyed peas. That's one of my favorite things. So this is going to be a meal that I'm going to love.
I imagine that must be so good when it's fresh like that. And
Yes,
shelled, you know,
yes.
just like anything.
We used to sit on the front porch. My grandmother lived on Highway 1. We watched the semi-trucks go by. We'd rock in our rocking chairs, swing on the
nice.
swing, and shell black-eyed peas.
Really?
So this has so many memories for me,
I
John.
love that.
Hey, tell us about the farm.
Oh, okay. Well, we're working with Orange County Public School
That is
right now.
great.
And we're really investing in education and agriculture. So at Ocoee High School, we have our first greenhouse that we have helped sponsor and build.
That's amazing.
And we're teaching them how to do controlled hydroponic growing. Okay, and we're getting ready to start our second one, which is going to be at Edgewater High School.
Wonderful.
And then we'll see where, where
Yeah.
Superintendent Jenkins wants us to go after that. But separate from that, we've got about 50 acres, and we're building a great big farm.
Yeah.
And so we're going to teach the kids how to grow on the school property.
And then come out to your
And then
farm.
give them jobs. And let them come
Oh.
out. And that farm is going to be used to grow food for our restaurants.
Nice.
For our good partner, Florida Hospital.
Nice.
For their hospitals. And for the kids in school.
that
so
is
they get
so
fresh,
nice.
fresh
Right.
produce.
Right.
And, just to teach them that, this stuff doesn't come from a can.
So what kinds of things would you grow?
Well, actually, between the three of us, we have accumulated a lot of produce,
Yeah?
as you can imagine.
Tomatoes.
Onions, lettuce, all of those will come together.
That's
and,
great.
There's not going to be a shortage of things to grow. Spices, herbs.
Well, and I bet some things take bigger fields to grow. Like if you were to do black-eyed peas, those are enormous fields that you probably
Well,
need,
you'd
right?
be surprised. We're doing some vertical growing.
Okay.
Which means you stack it like you see
Yeah.
at Epcot.
Yeah.
And our friends at Disney have been so helpful in teaching us how to do that.
What are we calling the farm?
Four Roots Farm.
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
love it. I
The roots
love
are
that.
Education. It is health and wellness. Community impact. And just a way to give back. We're going to use all the profits from the farm to put it back into the community and continue to teach the kids.
John, I have to just give you some kudos here because a lot of times in our cooking segments, we don't have time to talk about the significant things of eternal value that John is doing. But this is one of those that I am so proud of you for living out your Christian faith like you do. And it's making an eternal difference. So thank you.
You're very welcome.
For that. And thank you for cooking for us. And thank you for this incredible dish that I cannot wait to try.
Well, this is the finished product about an hour from now.
Yes,
and
yes.
all the flavors come together.
And the whole house is going to smell great. And so you have to cook your rice ahead of time.
Yep.
Right?
You put the rice in.
Okay.
It's already cooked.
Oh, my nana. This makes me think of my
Isn't that
grandmother.
good? I love that.
That is delicious. And there's the kick. The kick is coming in. John, thank you.
You're very, very welcome.
Love having you here. Viewers, again, if you want this recipe and many, many others, you can go to our website to get that. Stay with us. We've got more coming up. I hope you enjoyed our program today and learned a lot about ways to protect our young people and even ourselves in the ever-changing, growing realm of social media. The Bible is very clear about what we need to be teaching our children. Whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think on those things. It doesn't say whatever is damaging to our hearts and minds, whatever is socially acceptable, whatever is trendy and exciting. No, as parents and grandparents, we need to be vigilant, constantly monitoring what our children watch and listen to. Just the other day, I was on a road trip in the car with my daughter and her 3 children, my adorables, and out of the blue, the 2 boys, who are ages 11 and 5, started singing a rap song with some pretty inappropriate suggestive lyrics. Without going into a lecture or a tirade, their mom calmly turned on the radio. I guess she had a playlist from her phone. And Christian music flooded the car. The boys immediately switched gears and started singing praise songs. They knew every word to this edifying, wonderful music, so it was evident that they had heard these songs many times before. Well, how easy for our children to be persuaded for the good or for the bad. We just need to be present as much as possible to tenderly, gently move them into places of purity, loveliness, excellence, and praise to our Heavenly Father. It's a huge responsibility, but one that God has placed in our hands as parents and grandparents, and we need to assume that role with a great sense of joy and reverence. We can do it successfully with God's help. And that, dear friends, is our note of hope for today. Thanks so much for joining us, and God bless you.